General Weygand has called the Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
Welcome to the Lead Pursuit Podcast, a podcast covering Blood Red Skies, a game of World War II aerial combat. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Lead Pursuit Podcast. So we talked last episode with Andy Chambers, talked to him about Airstrike, all the upcoming changes, and that's probably a good reason to go back and kind of reset with a couple of our previous guests. Tonight, we're going to talk to that purveyor of small little plastic decals, little printed things that you can put on your plastic and resin miniatures, Kevin Hammond, the owner of Miscellaneous Miniatures. Kevin, it's awesome to have you on the podcast again tonight.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brett, we've got you on tonight. I know you've been consuming these decals at the cyclic rate. It's good to have you on, brother.
Guys, yeah, I'm almost embarrassed because I need to hit Kevin up for some more decals, and he's probably not going to want to talk to me because I come up with things I want.
Yeah, you need to keep ordering the things he has already created. Stop creating more work for him doing these custom ones. At least get him something that he can print off and put in an envelope and mail to you. Well, no, it's good to have everyone on. I laugh because we were talking in the segment beforehand about how far behind I am in my hobby work. I was good enough to pack up my nice little stack of Miscellaneous Minis, custom decals by Kevin Hammond, took them all the way to Alabama with me, and brought them all the way back, not having used a single one of them. None of my airplanes left their plastic container. So, Kevin, I apologize. I have gotten none of this work done. I know there's a few custom sets you said, hey, I really want to see those, and we'll continue to wait. But thanks. I do appreciate it. And it's great to go out to your website. I know you probably have a lot of new stuff that you've dropped out there because I haven't been there at least in a month or so, and I'm already looking and seeing things like Egyptian Air Force roundels, some other stuff in a variety of scales, obviously a bunch of Hurricane and Battle of Britain. What's been popular recently? What has everyone been ordering?
Recently, a lot of stuff for the Pacific, U.S., Japanese primarily, but then some Australian, some British, a couple of New Zealand in there. And Stalingrad's picking up, and like I said, Malta.
Good. Well, and hopefully we'll see some Stalingrad really to take off a little bit here with the Stalingrad campaign books coming out, this focus from bolt action and everything onto Stalingrad, and then probably some more Blood Red Skies scenarios. Maybe Warlord themselves will kick out a few scenarios. So hopefully that'll stir up a little bit of business and maybe some more Stalingrad work where it's not making custom ones. It's actually going out and then just reprinting the same ones you've already generated for us, for those of us that make those requests. I was happy to see the Egyptian roundels. That's a whole side project of mine. I'm sure I have a bunch of MiGs that I need to do up, but it's good to see those in 1/200 scale. Have you started getting some orders for some 1950s era Air Forces besides some of the standard stuff?
Get a few orders, mostly for the Marine, Navy, and Air Force. A couple of for the Koreans. Some requests for Vietnam, but not too many more requests, new requests.
Yeah, we'll see how things go with Vietnam. As Andy was saying the other day, there's obviously a push. Some people want to move the Blood Red Skies game forward into that era a little bit, and missile combat and some of the difficulties that brings out. So we'll see. So maybe you'll have some business there. I know for me, I'm going to be happy working with the 1950s era Air Forces that you did some custom work, the Pakistani Air Force, and then the Royal or the Republic of China, the Taiwanese Air Force. Working on those, I still got a few of those left to do with my F-86s. But those are super great and wonderful decals to work with. I'm sure you probably laughed if you heard my story of not being smart enough to use the no step lines the way you intended and trying to apply them as separate lines instead of keeping them all together. And then I realized what a genius you were and what an idiot I was.
You get rid of all that decal film and cut them out.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I've got to get rid of the extra film. No, the film would have kept me from sitting there and tapping them and moving them minutely back and forth to get the no step lines. But to be honest, the decal detail is great. If people haven't seen it, it's over on our Instagram and on our Facebook. A couple months ago, because it's the last time I worked on the F-86s. But I think it's really, really pretty neat decal work that you did for me there, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Brett, what are some of the things that you've ordered recently? I know you've been keeping him busy with a lot of different topics.
Man, I think I don't know if Kevin likes me. I've I've asked him to do so many things. It seems recently, I've had a short break as I've switched from some of the work I was doing on Malta, and I've been doing a bunch of research on Stalingrad, which is kind of queuing up a whole list of things that I may send Kevin's way. But yeah, Kevin's done a ton of sheets for Malta, and he's already done some stuff for Stalingrad. Uh, it's been awesome because there's kind of a lot of variety in there. Strangely enough, you would think Malta, it wouldn't be. I mean, if you're a layperson, you might think, oh, okay, you got a little Luftwaffe, you got a little RAF, maybe some Italians in there, but at least in the Luftwaffe side, there was a lot of variety of units that came and went, and Kevin's been extraordinary in being able to pump out some sheets and stuff to help represent that stuff on the table. So it's been really cool. And Stalingrad is kind of the same way. There's some key units and stuff, but a lot of variety of units. When you think about the aircraft involved, from HE-111s to Stukas and BF-109s. I mean, there's kind of all kinds of stuff going on there from some multiple units, and to be able to represent those on the tables with those decals, it's really making it really fun and exciting. It looks visually really nice and know that it's representing something that might be somewhat accurate historically.
Well, Kevin, I have to tell you, you probably laugh when you see Brett's orders, because I seriously cannot give him a scenario where he doesn't max out how many aircraft he needs for it. So if you wonder why the heck all of a sudden does he come up with needing another 40 different aircraft for Stalingrad? Didn't you just order 40 other, BF-109s and everything else for Malta? Yes, he wants the exact correct squadrons. So I'd be happy if I just threw a little white paint on them, but so.
Doug's embellishing just a little bit, but I do kind of go a little nuts.
Yeah, that's okay. But I like the way you present your request, where you have the background research pretty much complete. That's although I like history, it does take a lot of time to go back and do the research to find out, the codes that were and were not there, the emblems that changed, what was different, what hadn't changed. Yeah, the more information I get up front, the easier.
You recently did a really interesting sheet for Stalingrad for the Ju-52s. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did for that? Because that was quite a collaboration. You did far more than I asked for. It was, and I think it's an impressive sheet because it gives you so much variety.
Yeah, with Stalingrad, there's a lot of desperation on the German side, and I think that's reflected in that sheet. It's got 4 different sets for, 4 different decal sets for Ju-52s. Each one is from a different unit, kind of show the hodgepodge mix of them just desperately trying to get supplies and troops moved to the front. And it's got an air ambulance set for trying to get the wounded soldiers back. So that was fun, just because of the variety that's included in it.
It's really cool. I just finished painting up one and used the decal set for the blind flying school, which I just thought was super cool. I mean, here's a unit. I think the Luftwaffe had to basically take every Ju-52 they had anywhere and send it there to try to help out. And anyway, there was some historical photographs of an aircraft from a training school that was pressed into service in the airlift, and you created the decals for that, and that was really, really cool. I just finished that one. I'll get you pictures of that soon.
I'd appreciate it.
There's a ton of stuff I'm starting to explore when it comes to Stalingrad specifically that's out there. Most notably, some BF-109Gs from a couple of units, and some Stukas. So I found some pretty cool stuff. I mean, there were some periods in there when even Stukas were painted white. I might try to do that, but to have the actual fuselage numbers and stuff represent the aircraft that or in that area is pretty cool. And I know that's something that you're able to do. And I really appreciate all the work you've done for that. Your contribution to what we've done already for the Malta table for Adepticon 2020 is going to help that table look outstanding. And I think we're really close to getting everything done for Stalingrad too. I'm currently painting pretty much the very last of the stuff for the Luftwaffe side of the Malta table, and I've got a small queue of stuff for Stalingrad, so I think we'll get it all done just in time for the table at Adepticon. But your role in that can't be diminished in any way, because those decals, they look awesome, and I see it all the time on the Ready Room Facebook page, people asking, hey, where do you guys get decals? I don't mean that they're asking me specifically, but I just see posts where folks are asking the audience at large, where are good places to get decals? And I can say with full confidence that everybody needs to come see you, because you've got such variety already and the ability to make other things as well. Not even just in the 1 to 200 scale. Can you tell us a little about some of the other projects you do outside of 1 to 200?
Yeah, sure. Two of the ones I just finished, one today and put up, was the some numbers, and then eagle emblems for the 27th Aero Squadron in World War I. That's 1/44 scale. And then last week I finished a 1/600 scale set for the 41st Bomb Wing. It's got 3 sheets. Each sheet is a different bomb group, and then each of those sheets has 3 or 4 squadrons on it.
1 to 600? Are you kidding me? What is that for?
I think they're playing Check Your Six.
Oh.
So but individual wanted to represent a raid, wanted to have 64 models bomber on the table.
And it looks cool. I'll tell you, looking at those painted B-52s, especially with the lizard camo, the Southeast Asia style camo, that looks cool. So I don't know how taxing that was for 1/600 work for you to do all the lines and aircraft detail work and stuff like that. But holy cow, that looks like it turned out well.
Thanks. But yeah, they're can use pretty much the same information. It's just a matter of getting it scaled to the model itself. And there's different vendors, and they're not just like 1/200. They're not exactly the same between vendors, so you got to make a little adjustment.
That's a good point. That was something we did together recently. I did a repaint of a 1 to 200 die-cast B-29. I was desperate to get a B-29 on the table, and Dave's mold wasn't ready to be able to produce some for some time. And actually, when I heard from Dave at his shop that he was not going to be able to produce for a while, I didn't know that it was a temporary thing. I thought it's just B-29s weren't going to be available in resin really at all. So I was desperate. I think Doug actually found something on Amazon. It was a display, not a toy really, but a little already painted, fully painted die-cast B-29 in 1 to 200 scale, coincidentally. And I thought, heck, I could get that and I could just do a repaint. And you made the decals for that, but I actually sent that to you. You had to compare that to models you had, right?
Yeah, I had one from Dave, and the decals needed a little adjustment, but in the end I got a set that I was happy with that fit on both. That's not a problem there. Sometimes between the Warlord Games models and the AIM models, there'd be a difference in the fuselage size or something like that. Different size crosses, different size stars.
And I have noticed that there's slight differences. And so I just did a couple of AIM BF 109 Fs, I think they were, and they're slightly larger than the ones that I had before, but not from him. I guess maybe they were emals. Yeah, I guess they were emals. I had some emals from Warlord Games, and then I had a couple of random ones to fill in that I got from Dave at AIM, and slight difference. But when they're packed together on the table, they look fine. They don't really stand out. But I could see how when you're trying to put together precise decals and stuff, that little difference in the model size is going to potentially throw you off. And you did a wonderful job on it. Those B29 decals, they look great. And I've since grabbed 3 more resin ones from Dave. He was able to get those back in production and got me some. And I'll be putting those together, at least a couple of them here pretty soon, once I get through some of this other stuff that's on the queue. But really looking forward to getting those decals as well. They all look so good.
Yeah, the B29 decals, if you still need it, I'm looking at starting those in about a week. Cozy Kid and Command Decision and the
Command Decision is such a cool looking model. I think to me, when I look at it, just because it has that black camouflage, that night camouflage or whatever you would call that, the black underbelly that goes across the whole aircraft, it really stands out to me. And certainly just right off when you see it visually, you know that's a Korean era B29. It's that color scheme is so cool. So I'm looking forward to painting that one up because that certainly has that look to it. And there's no doubting that that's a Korean B29 when you see it.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at some of the different decals and then the painted subjects that you've got on your site. Did you do those 1/600th scale B-52s yourself, or was that done by the client that you did the decals for?
The B-52s I painted.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So the interesting thing, and this is always one of those continual arguments we have, and I'm sure you've gone through this a million times, is how do you show the detail? And when I looked at the B-52, I realized, hey, he thought of a good way to cheat, because obviously the no step walkway lines work great, but then you can also add detail around the upper side of the aircraft and everything with the decal. So when you're working a really small miniature like that, I thought they both turned out great. You know, the H model, and then I guess it was the other one was the D model, or D or an E. And I thought it looked really good because it kind of masked how flat the model itself is at 1/600 scale, because that's a tiny airplane even for a B-52. But I thought that was a pretty cool way to add the detail in, so you could really see it.
Yeah, long ago and far away, before I started the business, I was printing an inkjet, and I did a set for F-80s, the A models, and they had all the lines done, the panel lines and whatnot.
Yeah, that makes it really easy then to have it as part of the decal.
Yeah, I've got the pictures of them now, but the files have been
long gone, unfortunately.
long gone.
Well, so if someone was going to come to you and they had their specific product and aircraft, you know, kind of, can you give me a listing of the first kind of things you need? Besides, we've talked about, hey, you need to know what model it is. Are we basing it on, let's say it's a 1/200th one? Is it AIM? Is it Warlord? What other historical data do you like people to compile? Because I know we can go from the overload level that sometimes Brett and I send to sometimes it's kind of like my first request of, hey, Sabres, Pakistani Air Force, 1950s and 60s, go. What kind of things do you really want to hear from people?
Okay, like you said, the vendor, who's making the model, what scale, how many customer needs as a part of that. And then I need the customer to, if possible, give me 7 to 14 other aircrafts worth of either references or information, and then any special things that they want to see, like this particular aircraft I want in there. And the reason I ask for 7 to 14 other information on 14 other aircraft is because I'm not going to charge the customer $100 for design fee. I'm going to charge them $5 for a decal sheet, but then I want to be able to take that sheet and put it in the store so I can sell it. So I make a profit on volume.
Well, I think that's what some people may not realize is if they haven't gone to your website that you're just not selling necessarily a one-off 6 airplane little part of a mini squadron here, like you might get in the Warlord box or in some other companies' box sets. Not only do you go out there and say, hey, I want to find something from number 140 squadron, but usually you've got multiple different iterations of it, not just for the different manufacturers, but then for different, aircraft in the squadron or even different time periods. So I think sometimes people may not realize there's a good thing to giving you a lot of this information, because then it kind of broadens the scope of what you can offer to everybody else.
Right. It's like a recent one with the 109E and I didn't know the 109E was used in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, but an individual wanted a squadron from the Condor Legion, and he sent me the 3 squadrons worth of information and just wanted one of them. But I made 3 sheets because, there are other people that want Spanish Civil War marking.
Yeah.
So now they've got a choice for all 3 of the squadrons that flew 109Es.
Well, my problem is half of the time when I go to your website, I sit there and I go, all right, I know what I'm looking for. And I'll go find that one decal sheet. But the problem is everyone else's cool custom work that you've done makes me want to acquire more. Like I was just looking, I'd gone through the 1-200. I'm like, there won't be anything I'm interested in. And then all of a sudden there is Somali and Ethiopian MiG and Hunter and Canberra aircraft for the Ogaden War timeframe in the 1950s. I'm like, damn it, Kevin. Now I have a whole other series of paint schemes I can do.
And I've got the decal size for Mirage F1s for South African Air Force and the Iraqi Air Force.
Don't tell me that, because I'm even just getting lost on the North Vietnamese Air Force ones right now. So I'm laughing to myself going, okay, I think I know the jets that I can acquire and that I can put decals on and not feel bad about it without starting 3 or 4 different other Bush wars that I'll be painting and modeling aircraft for. Because to be honest, one of the things you'll probably see here soon is as more people are playing MiG Alley, and as statistics for some of these other aircraft are getting out there, at least specifically in Blood Red Skies, more people are starting to realize they can play other wars other than World War II and Korea. And so kind of like when I came to you and asked for the other 2 Asian air forces, I think you're probably going to see that a little bit more with Blood Red Skies, and so hopefully it'll fill out here to where you're just printing ones you've already designed and not having to go out and research other conflicts and other air forces.
Yeah, speaking of those, shortly after the B-29s, I'll be doing 1-200 Indian Air Force and the Red Chinese.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
those will probably be more generic sheet with the roundels and the stars and a couple of different sizes, and then numbers, just because there's not a significant amount of unit marking that are unique.
right. Well, and that's kind of the nice thing on some of them, like painting the Chinese Air Force MiGs. As you go through some of them, it makes it pretty easy to just put different nose numbers on there, maybe change the style of how the nose painting is done, and then you're pretty much finished. It's not a whole lot of small nose art and extraneous little decals that really add that level of realism. But I'll tell you, there comes a point for me working at 1/200 scale where I'm like, oh, thank God it's MiGs and sabers, something that's really easy to do.
It's nice and silver.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Brett will laugh at me. I finally got my shipment of Flory wash in because it had been out of stock when I tried to order it last time. So I'm back and re-equipped to do more silver airplanes and get those working. But I'll have to experiment with some of the camouflage, and as we're doing a lot of the other scenarios and work around Korea, and you get that sudden change in the communist forces at the end of the Korean War, where you start getting camouflage painted aircraft. I'm starting to have to look at them and go, okay, do I need numbers and letters in different colors, or okay, thank God they're all still red. Can I still get away with it?
Have such a big variety at the 1-200 scale, but if I was go on and see, you're looking for something specifically and not see it on there, should I look in your other scale offerings to see if it may be there? Is that something that's an easy conversion from one scale to another? If it perhaps
you don't necessarily need to look through the rest of the site to see if it's there. You just send me an email or go to the website and go through the contact route, and just let me know what you want. So I've recently put up some Croatian marking World War II because somebody wanted some.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I've seen some photos Ready Room, folks throwing up stuff that's maybe more obscure or whatever. But the fact, I mean, just that's available, that somebody could go to your website, get just about anything you can conceive of for World War II, or even beyond that. But, kind of narrowing the conversation really to this Blood Red Skies thing. Somebody could go in there and pretty much satisfy any unit marking that is out there, and most of them are already on your site and readily available. So it's really awesome that that's there. I mean, it's
probably underrepresented right now is, I'd say, French, and overrepresented would be Romanian.
Yeah, there are a few of those that I look at and I laugh and I go, well, that was obviously a one-off, but that's fine. That's good.
For the Romanians, I got the Hurricanes, the IRA 80s, the 109s, 190s, 110s, HE 111s, JU 88s, JU.
Hey, it's good. You've covered, I think, every platform they had. So
yeah.
Nice work. Yeah, some of these I look at and I go, it must have been a pain to design some of them, like the P-47s with nose art and some of the swooshes and everything they've got on them. How have you had a project recently that just got really frustrating to try to get it to scale properly to the aircraft and look as unobtrusive as a decal and look more like a paint job than just a water slide decal?
I can't think of any that have been recent one. There was a Mustang unit that I did, I think it was last year, and I think it took me the better part of 5 months. But it had the checkered nose, but the entire front end's checkered.
Wow.
Yeah, you have more patience than I do to lay that one out.
And that was, putting masking tape on, drawing lines on the masking tape, taking the tape off, scanning the tape, that kind of stuff. And it was just, I'm going to put it away. But in the end, you can get a checker nose P-51 if you have patience. And
excellent. Well, you probably saved somebody a lot of frustration there by having that as a decal instead of them having to go in and do individual checks. I know I probably need to put in an order for a variety of checker-nosed aircraft as VFA or V. Let me get it right here. VMA 533, and then VMFA 533, and then all through all of its iterations with the Hawks and their blue and white checks. So I'll need those at some point, but that's years away.
Yeah. Oh, that was a little bit of a challenge doing FNA 18s for what's VFA 31. Is that what I said a while ago?
Right. I was just looking at that one out there.
And the challenge with that is that most of the markings are either black or some variation of gray, which shouldn't be that hard to do. But since the printer prints black just fine, but under anything other than black, it will print white under. It'll print white first, and sometimes you'll see a little bit of registration issue, and that gets to be a problem if you're printing gray, because it'll try and print the white, and then you just end up with an overrepresentation of white, a white edge on one side that doesn't look right. So playing with that, trying to get print it as a transparent, 50% transparency or half black and nothing else kind of thing.
So if we want to push you over the edge, we should order a lot more modern U.S. Navy subdued decals.
Anything subdued that's not black or white.
Excellent. I will not be ordering any of those anytime soon. Then I will order all high vis decals from you, just for that reason. I can understand that would be frustrating. But once again, your attention to detail is obvious when you sit there and you go look at the decal sheet, and knowing the behind the scenes of how much effort it takes to try to print gray and things like that. You sit there and go, okay, there was a lot of time to get that one right. Well, Brett, what were some of the other projects and things you've worked on? I know you've done so much stuff with Malta and been working through Stalingrad, and then obviously Korea with the B-29s. What were some of the other things you had kind of on the horizon to work with Kevin on?
Oh yeah, well, I know that for Stalingrad, I've got a short queue of some HE 111s, I think they're from STG 77. We were talking about this before we started recording, Kevin and I. I found some type of document, Luftwaffe document that showed it was like a manifest or some type of logbook that showed the last 3 aircraft that managed to land at Potomnik for aerial resupply. There were 3 HE-111s, and it had the aircraft numbers, the fuselage numbers, and all the stuff that they brought or whatever. And I thought that was just kind of amazing because the unit existed, but to actually have the aircraft numbers for the 3 aircraft that were the last ones to land and take off again. That's something that maybe we can get on a sheet, to represent that specific unit for HE-111s. And I know there's some Stukas we'd like to put together. Kevin has a bunch of Stuka sheets already, and I may be able to use some of those. There's and talking about Stukas, it kind of reminds me of something you touched on earlier, Kevin. You were saying, your sheets often cover a really wide range for that particular unit, and you did some Stukas for Malta, and it was awesome because not only did it include a squadron, but it also include the staff, some markings for some staff, and the nose art for the squadron over a long period. So depending on what period you want to represent, you could the hobbyist could do it that way. I thought that was really clever and really thoughtful to do that. But as far as stuff that's on the horizon, it's really the biggest thing I've got going. I'm looking at my stack of stuff behind my desk right now. It's all stuff for Stalingrad. So looking at those.
I was about to say that was a long road to you're still not done with Stalingrad.
Yeah, I'm not done. You're right. I'm actually not done with Malta. I'm painting.
Neither am I. So that's the problem. Is I shouldn't be thinking about MiGs because I'm not done with Malta. But thankfully, there are plenty of RAF squadrons that Kevin already has that can cover me for that. So I've got my decals. I cannot use that. Kevin, you can't be my excuse. I'm sorry. I can't say that my stuff's not done because I'm waiting on decals. But going out there and looking at some of the other things you've done, you've obviously got some fantasy on there. You've got some ships. You've got some ground force decals. What's probably been the strangest series of decals that you've worked on recently? I know previously you've kind of told us some of the stories about things you worked on, but what this time has been just kind of a unique challenge that's been out of the box?
Oh, it's hard to say. I'd have to almost go back and look at the website to see what's. There's some stuff for the 82nd Airborne. Which, it's not.
What scale was the 82nd Airborne? Was it the kind of stuff where you're fighting to get those little small insignia decals, like kind of happened when I threw the Brazilian Expeditionary Force for the my dust figures?
It's a labor of love because it was. I was in the 82nd years ago, and the customer was in the 82nd, and he must have the 82nd a couple of times over for different periods, but it included bumper numbers, some of the Sheridan that I had, the M551.
Oh, nice.
They were in my company, and
that's cool.
I want to say they were 1/100 scale. Shoulder patches, dude shoulder patch, dude flag, bumper numbers.
Wow,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I promise I will not send you any of the bureau numbers from any of the F-18s that I flew, simply because they will be all subdued, and you will lose your mind putting 164, 888, and all those other different aircraft on there. So I think we'll hold off on that for a while. I have plenty of other projects out there. For some of your stuff, like your ships and your boats, has that mostly been the Cruel Seas type scale stuff, or has it been larger? What scales are you seeing out there for that?
For those, the Cruel Seas is still popular at 1/300 scale, and then some of the other Warlord games, I guess, a 28 millimeter, and I've had some of those for landing craft, one of decals, and then 1/100 scale landing craft as well. And because there's one tank in particular that somebody wanted the Fighting Girlfriend T34. I think the driver was.
I just saw that. That was
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't realize you had that set out there.
It was a 28 millimeter T34 and wanted the mark. So that's the only thing on that sheet is the for that one tank.
Good. Well, conveniently, I'm seeing a lot of Pacific ships in here. Hint, hint. And things that will work out well for for doing some midway work later in the year. So obviously, we'll have to be getting with you. And Brett, I know you've got several models there that you're probably mostly done with. But we may have other ones that you need decal support. Was everything that you did on your last series of ships, was that all decal, or was that pretty much hand done, hand painted?
Those were just all hand painted. They're so small. I didn't even consider doing decals for those.
Well, then I'll say don't go out to his website and look for U.S. Navy and Imperial Japanese Navy carrier decals, because they're out there.
Oh man! Well, that's really something, because the roundels for the decks of those Japanese carriers would be probably really handy, because I don't want to do
things in hindsight you wish you had.
Right. I haven't done any Japanese carriers yet, but I'm thinking that's going to be a must-have, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's I forget what scale those are. The flight deck decals that I have.
I think they're 1/3000th. It says so. We may need to rescale them, but it's pretty darn close, and they look nice. I looked at that, and I'm just like, oh wow, that is so much easier than putting, especially on the Japanese carriers and the IJN carriers, all their wind markings and everything else. I'm like, oh, that's just brilliant, even at that small scale.
Well, to make our lives easier, and this might hurt business wise, but it'll save me time and might save the customer time. There's a company called Flight Deck Decals, and they specialize in decals for aircraft carrier flight decks.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know that. See, that's the funny thing about getting a hobby that's kind of a crossover for models, as Blood Red Skies kind of is, because now that we've got Airstrike, all of a sudden we need targets, we need ships, we need all these other things. I had never gone looking for flight deck decals, and see, you just taught me something there. I didn't even know that such a company existed. That I will definitely not look at that site, or else I'll be building ships.
I just got a couple of submarines, and I got the HMS Illustrious. It literally just came late last week in 1 to 2400 scale for Malta.
Yeah, that'll keep us busy for a while. Well, awesome. Kevin, is there anything new on the horizon that you're working on that you want to talk about? Any other projects, any things that are changing with miscellaneous miniatures and what you're offering? Any upcoming ideas?
Let's see. The new ones on the horizon, I think I mentioned a few of them. The B-29s, 1/200 scale Indian Air Force and Red Chinese, Iranian F-14s, South African Air Force and Iraqi Mirage F-1s, a US F-14 or two for Libya. And let's see. For the Pacific, maybe one or two new sheets for Midway, kind of round out at least the aircraft, the complete aircraft for one aircraft carrier. So you get the Wildcat, the Dauntless, and the Devastator. Right now, I think I have a hodgepodge, a couple of from this carrier, a couple from that carrier, a couple from another one. But
I think that would help, because that'd be the nice thing, at least for Blood Red Skies players, is the way Andy has built the scenarios. They're very small scale. They're carrier specific, and that way people could then come out and go, okay, that's exactly the decal set I need to go through the entire air wing and not have to worry about modeling, kind of like I do, across the span of what was actually there.
Yeah, and then many of the decal sheets that I have now for Midway were the initial decal sheets I did years ago when I guess Check Your Six was the popular game, and people were playing. They were pushing around 4 or 8 models or for the U.S., and then on the Japanese side they were doing 3, 6, or 9, and a lot of those sheets need to be redone because I've learned some stuff. I get more decals on the sheet, and because they're on the old letter size paper instead of A4. Those will have to be redone, not necessarily.
great idea about doing them for the carrier group. That's especially, I think, helpful for the IJN stuff, because I find those unit designations really confusing and hard to understand. But if it was as simple as, here's the aircraft for the Hiryu or whatever, I wouldn't even have to think hard.
Yeah. And I don't know, I kind of, as a tribute to Torpedo 8, which was wiped out except for one man, I'd modeled them, but the Dauntlesses didn't participate in the battle, really.
Yeah, the funny thing is you sit there and you look at all the different aircraft that were there, and those that were influential and we think about there's a lot of other aircraft that people want to model between all the Army Air Force aircraft, and then obviously the Marine Squadron with VMF 221. There were some aircraft that didn't have a whole lot of play in the overall fight, but were still a contributing effort that obviously for me as a retired Marine, I'm going to model the ugly Brewster Buffaloes that I'm embarrassed to fly, but model those for VMF 221 because those actually were a factor at one point, even though they kind of were a speed bump for the IJN aircraft. They were something that was out there.
And something else you need to go with those are the Vindicators.
Yeah, that also goes down the embarrassing aircraft fielded by the Marine Corps. That's it right there. VMSB 241. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that will be a project for this summer as we start moving towards Midway, and I get some breathing room after Malta.
This is what's going to happen. We're going to, right now I'm in heads down display mode, painting up Malta, and then I've got a stack of stuff behind me for Stalingrad, but I'm thinking, I've got this well in hand. I'm going to get, I was telling Kevin earlier, I was like, I don't even know what unit sheets I need at this moment. Right now, I'm just painting this. I'm just literally like, I got to get light blue on the bottom of these BF 109s right now. That's all I'm thinking about. But it's all still feels very manageable. Like, okay, no problem. I got 2 months. I'm going to get through this. It's all well in hand. But then as soon as that's done, it's going to be something else. It's going to be Midway or some other F4s for Vietnam or something.
Well, I think that's really the reason why I don't want Andy and everyone to open a can of worms with another era is I'm still not painted through World War II in Korea. There's plenty of work that's still going to be done there. So I don't know that I'm ready to move on in the sense that I'm going to have to obviously make a Pacific push just to get stuff for Midway. But Kevin, I know that we're going to be coming to you to do Guadalcanal stuff because that's obviously going to have some supplements that are coming out, some more stuff for bolt action with Mariana's campaigns and a variety of different things going on. And holy crap, I don't know that we're ever going to get out of this reactionary pace of what the next series of models to get painted are. So at least that's good for you. We'll keep you in business.
Yeah, I've already got some Guadalcanal, so there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, well, because actually that's where I started. So that was the funny thing was I had acquired models just kind of playing around doing some Guadalcanal and Pacific stuff. But as soon as this train wreck of Malta and Stalingrad and then MiG Alley hit, that totally got derailed. So I have some sample models painted, but not entire 6 aircraft squadrons. Well, have you noticed that at least we talked a little bit about the shift from Check Your 6 over to Blood Red Skies? Has it caused a little bit of a shift in the way you do your decals? Because now Blood Red Skies kind of really works around the 6 models or 6 plus an ace, so 7 models sometimes. Has that had to shift how you produce your decals?
Yeah, it's how many can I get on the sheet reasonably, and still you give the customer room to maneuver a knife or a pair of scissors to get the images out. Put as many on there so he doesn't have to buy multiple sheets. Whereas before it was, nobody's buying more than 4 aircraft from Dave. So working close with Dave is they buy 4 from him, have a decal sheet for 4.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's going to be an interesting change as we've gone to the jets.
6 or 7. So, and now Dave said, give me 12 or 14 aircraft worth of decals. People are buying, even if the number doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, I think
24 of them.
There's going to be points to that where people are going to look at me and go, so what Bort number is that? I'm like, just don't worry about it. It's just one that we painted on the side of this Russian aircraft because I need more Russians, especially as people keep opening, the can of worms of Cold War stuff they want to model. And someone, I think the other day, mentioned wanting to model B-29. It was actually a Washington bomber, so it was an RAF B-29 escorted by NATO F-86s blundering into Russian MiG-15s. And I just was like, that's awesome. That's great. Oh my God, that's yet even more Air Forces I'm not ready for. So there's definitely a demand out there in the Blood Red Skies community, and that's a good thing, I guess, for all of us, because it'll keep us busy, and we're not painting the same armies over and over again, kind of like how I felt I was in 40K with the same grind to finish 2,000 points of little Space Marines instead of a quick 6 aircraft paint job.
I was thinking of you, Kevin, last week because I was just reading through the Sandstorm campaign thing from Warlord Games for Blood Red Skies. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a way where you can play a historical setting. In this case, it was a Western Desert, Luftwaffe versus RAF, but you could, there was like dice roll mechanics and stuff to, even so far as name your individual pilots and stuff. But depending on the outcome of the games you play with your buddy, there's different buffs or whatever that your individual pilots could earn, and if they have enough successes in a row, they maybe increase their pilot skill and things like that. I think you actually earn points through the play of the game, where you can then spend those points to, bring in new pilots and stuff to replace ones that were shot down, stuff like that. But anyway, there was one chart I thought was kind of cool where to give special credit to noteworthy pilots or whatever, I guess you could roll on the, and I don't remember how exactly it worked, but I think if certain aircraft achieve certain achievements by being super successful in numerous games, you can then go to this chart and roll dice to determine what their special individual nose art would be. And it's a whole little graph depending on what you rolled on, maybe like a 2d6 or something. The guy gets a devil's face or a lion or shark's teeth or something like that. So there was, might have been a dozen different possibilities. And I thought, yep, somebody's going to be bugging Kevin to make a sheet for that. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think we ought to cut and paste that and send it to Kevin and go, Kevin, buddy, why don't you make a a Sandstorm sheet with all the custom nose art?
Copy.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm pulling up Sandstorm. Let's see if I can find it. I can't find it, so I've got it somewhere. Oh, it's probably.
I know nobody's going to be hand painting that stuff.
Oh yeah,
at that size, yeah.
But and a lot of that stuff I can't. I can make my interpretation. I can't lift it up.
Oh, certainly not. It was all. In fact, when I saw it, I thought, I bet a lot of that stuff already exists. It would just be.
Oh yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you look at it, and there's animal motifs, mythical beasts. Even the ones, there's only 2 of them in the cartoons you couldn't do because they'd be trademarked. It'd be Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse, but it's things like Lucky Dice, a fan of playing cards, the Grim Reaper. You could certainly do those. Obviously not the Axis or allied celebrities, but don't need to be making anybody's likeness on the decal and getting in trouble for that.
What would that be, like Betty Boop or something?
Yeah, there are quite a few different ones there in Sandstorm. But anyway, those are some of the cool things that obviously people might be requesting soon, and we'll see once again where all the expansions for Blood Red Skies go, because there's so much. I want to say opposite polar poles right now. People really want to see World War II filled out with a lot more aircraft. They're starting to see this decision to make some more Korean era aircraft. So the fact that Warlord is going to do direct order F9 Panthers and P-80 Shooting Stars, that's going to create some more demand there. But there always is all the other outliers that say, hey, what about my modern jets or my Vietnam era jets? So we'll see what Warlord does with that. Hopefully it won't detract from continuing to fill out the rest of the line and the rest of the projects that are set this year. Well, Kevin, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I know we've talked for almost an hour now and really used up everybody's time talking about decals, where all the hardcore players are like, I don't care. I play with unpainted airplanes. And then all of us look at them and laugh and go, that's fine. We enjoy having our airplanes look like they belong in the Second World War. But thanks for all the time that you've taken. In closing, are there any minute tips and tricks you want to throw anyone's way working with those decals, or anything you've seen people have difficulty with in the past?
The only trick that I've seen recently, and I think I posted on my website as well, as for some of the very small decals, instead of cutting them out and soaking them and trying to get the decal, off of the paper, and then with a brush or something move it over to the model. They actually put a drop of water on the model where the decal is going to go, and then they put the decal still on the paper on the drop of water. And then after a couple of minutes, they just kind of work the decal off of the paper straight onto the model, which I usually lift the paintbrush or something like that and move it a couple inches from the paper model. I thought that was a trick.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That feels like cheating because I don't know why I didn't think of doing it that way with some of the small little individual kill markings and everything else. But I guess I'm not that smart. But yeah, no, that's definitely.
Why not?
Yeah, that makes a heck of a lot more sense than the way I was doing business. So trying to get that just exactly off the backing paper and smoothly put it on there in one motion. Yeah, that didn't always work so well.
Yeah, that probably worked for one side, or let it dry and then do another.
Yeah,
you start putting a couple of drops on, and then the ones you just did are slightly.
Well, yeah, that's that's why I would always run into, especially with the RAF and their stupid letters on either side of their roundels. And as soon as I'd get something positioned right where I'd want it, I'd invariably knock the other one or put too much setting solution or something there, and it would pop that one up. So that is always a trial. Brett, anything in parting that you want to offer?
I just want to say again, thanks, Kevin, because you've done a lot to enhance the hobby experience. It's a lot of fun to be able. There's a lot of. We've said this a bunch of times just in our previous episodes about sort of that completion satisfaction to be able to, really fairly quickly get a significant number of models on the table, and what you produce makes those models look really super fantastic, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I'll give the shameless plug out there. If you have not gone to Miscellaneous Minis recently, Kevin has a lot more aircraft with the decals up on the site. So if you want to see what it looks like actually on the airframe for a lot of these, that's out there. Shameless plug is some of those are Brett's images of some of his. I noticed the HE-111s are out there already. So if you haven't seen them on our website, you want to see what the decals look like on the aircraft out there, go out to Misc Mini, MISCMINI.com. And you can go through the shop and you'll be overwhelmed with all the different decals and different options that you have out there. And once again, if you don't see it, don't panic. Shoot Kevin an email. He may have it, may be able to design it. Or worst case, he'll start from scratch and he'll let you know what the time estimate is on all that. But Kevin, you've been a great help to the community. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Very well. Thanks for having me.